0, which is also the number of cares in the world you'll have as you stroll the beach, eating cookies and speaking French. Oh la la. Walgreens.
$0 copays apply to Tier 1 generic drugs and select plans where Walgreens is a preferred pharmacy.
The station giving you Philadelphia Flyers hockey.
Here's a shot, rebound. Oh, a great save by Carter Hart. He absolutely robbed Toby Reeder on the rebound.
97.3 ESPN FM, the play-by-play home of Flyers hockey.
We got Flyers hockey tonight on 97.3 ESPN. It's the Flyers and the Devils. Devils been a surprise.
Yeah, nice little team they got right now. Flyers, not so much.
Not so much. You know, how much does losing Couturier, though, hurt them?
I think it's that. I think the D-core is just bad and beat up as well.
Gostisbehere's supposed to be back tonight.
Yeah,
You think that helps?
We got defensive problems, and we're supposed to be excited about Gostisbehere being in the lineup.
I think they're going to pair him up with Provorov.
Yeah,
Should be able to score from the blue line left and right.
I think to give him a little bit of confidence, maybe that's the road they go down. But I'm defeated right now with this squad.
All right, Inside the Sixers. Our Inside the Sixers guest today is from CBS Sports. He covers the Sixers, covers the NBA. You know him from 97.3 ESPN.com, formerly, I should say. He's Michael Kaskey-Blomain, and he joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline as the Sixers, an ugly one last night, MKB.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the prettiest one so far. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, man. So do we take anything from a loss when you don't have Joel Embiid, or is there something to be said for you lost to Detroit, a horrible team, without Joel Embiid? What does that say for the rest of what you got?
Yeah, I don't think it's a great sign, Mike. I mean, I don't think it's a situation where you want to be overly concerned. But personally, I'm a little bit more concerned than at least Doc seems to be. He basically, kind of brushed it off last night. He said it's not on his list of concerns, quote unquote, in terms of the fact that they've been, unable to win a game without Joel so far. And obviously, ultimately, when the postseason comes around, you're going to hope to have Joel, every game. But the thing is, this is a roster that's built that should be able to get these wins against teams like the Grizzlies or, the Heat when they're missing half of their starting lineup, or the Pistons last night without Joel in there. And I think there is a level of concern that they're, have not been able to have success without him so far, for sure.
Yeah, and obviously he's playing at such a high level. Many people think MVP level, but I guess the question would be is when you see you lose, you don't have Embiid, do you start to think if you're Daryl Morey, we've got to get another piece? Like, this guy's playing at such a high level. The group around him not good enough. We've got to find him someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is something that, is probably first and foremost on Daryl Morey's mind. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be, a superstar level player or that they're actively shopping Ben Simmons. Obviously that was a situation with James Harden. When you can get a player of that caliber, maybe you consider it. But, in general, I think that he's probably surveying the landscape. The Sixers still have roster space. They still have some cap space in terms of the, the mid-level exception and things like that moving forward. And they have some attractive pieces now, outside of Simmons when you go, down the roster and you want to talk about, Matisse, Shake, Maxey, guys like that, and future draft picks that, potentially could be in play if, some of these other players that aren't necessarily superstars, but, a guy that can come in and give them 15, 18, 20 points a game from the perimeter. I think that's something that they'll definitely be, scouring the market for between now and the trade deadline.
What's your thoughts on the Ben Simmons situation with the frustration boiling through the lack of scoring? And is this version of Ben good enough?
No, I don't think it is. And I'm one that's been, I was a pretty big Ben Simmons supporter. I have been a little bit disappointed with his play so far this year. And I think games like last night perfectly illustrate why people are getting upset with Ben Simmons. When you have your heavy hitter and Embiid out, you have another all-star, a guy that's made the past 2 all-star games, a first-team all-defensive player, still on the roster. And you would like to think that in a situation like that, he has it in him and, he would feel it inside of him to want to kind of step up and take over these games. Much like he did his rookie year when Embiid was out and they went on that 17-game winning streak at the end of the season and it carried into the playoffs. That year we saw Ben really, put the team on his shoulders when Joel was out. He was aggressive. And I think that's probably my biggest concern with Ben so far this season is just the lack of aggression on the offensive end. And to me, that's never meant shooting threes. I'm still pretty indifferent about him, taking shots from the perimeter. to me, it's just more about him looking at the basket, looking to attack. He has, such a unique combination of size, speed, and athleticism. And over the past, 5 games, a couple weeks, there's been, multiple times during the games. I've even been jotting the time and the situation down at some of these times where he has, a much smaller guard on him in the post or on the elbow. And he's just not even looking to be aggressive, not looking to take advantage of the mismatch. And these are the things that I think that he's going to have to do moving forward to give this team a legitimate chance. He doesn't have to be, a gunner from the outside, but he does have to be a guy that's, aggressive and looking to take his own shot and make things happen for himself, offensively. And that's something that's been lacking so far. And I think it's fair to wonder, what the deal is.
What are you seeing different from Ben from last year? I mean, he's a guy that we criticized his offense last year. He was still getting 16 points. He's been about 16, 18-point-a-game scorer. He's down to about 11 to 12. So what is different? Is it, hey, they got better talent around him. He's not as aggressive. The offense is different. Doc doesn't ask him to score as much. What do you sense is different about Ben that scoring average is, it's down pretty significantly?
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, I think a lot of it has to be mental, Mike, because from everything I've seen, Doc has really empowered Ben. He obviously didn't come in trying to change Ben's game. He didn't come in trying to make Ben into a jump shooter. Basically, from the day that Doc was hired and he's been here, he's said, I'm going to give Ben the keys to the offense and let him do his thing and play the way that he feels comfortable. And, with the coach giving you that kind of support, you would think that would empower a player to, kind of want to take the next step. And like you just said, Mike, it's been almost the opposite. And to me, it just comes down to aggression. His points are down, his field goal attempts are down, his usage rate is down. Maybe a little of that could be the fact that there's better players around the team. A guy like Shake Milton has really stepped up and is getting, more opportunity with the ball in his hands. Same with Tyrese Maxey, a couple guys that, in the past weren't there, and now they have these other options. But to me, there's still so much for Ben in the flow of games to put his imprint on games like he has in the past, Mike, like you were saying. And he's just not doing it. And to me, it's a matter of aggression and it's a matter of mindset. When he wants to be aggressive, like we saw, in the last game against Detroit or in the second half of that game against the Celtics last week, he's still the same. He can be the same Ben Simmons that we've seen, in his first 3 years in the league, where he imposes his will, his physicality. He's going downhill. He's attacking the rim. He was 10 for 12 from the line in that Celtics game, and it was really, or in the Pistons game rather, and he was really confident, clearly of stepping up to the line and getting fouled and knocking down shots, but he's just not doing that consistently. And I think, that's the main thing for me. I want to see consistent aggression from him on the offensive end. With his size and speed and athleticism, there's no reason that he shouldn't be, not only averaging similar to what he averaged the past couple of years at, 16 points a game, but that, that could go up to 18 and 20 without him even taking shots. I'm not talking about outside shots, just with him, using his size and his instinct for the game and attacking the rim. I think the scoring should be up more there, and that will only help the Sixers. When he's aggressive and going downhill and getting toward the rim, that's obviously going to draw defenders in, open things up for these new guys like Seth and Danny and these other guys on the perimeter. And I think I just need to see more consistent aggression from Ben on the offensive end.
Yeah, Gil and I go back and forth about this all the time. If the spacing is right, and if Seth and Danny are playing so great, and Embiid dominates like he does, if Ben is playing elite defense and passing the ball beautifully like we see him do a lot of games, I don't know. Is that going to be something that can get the job done? But my concern is teams will find a way defensively in the postseason to make adjustments to make them feel uncomfortable just based off of Ben's inability to shooting.
Absolutely. And we've seen that in the past, where teams have kind of been able to, get Ben out of a rhythm on the offensive end in the postseason, whether, it was any of the teams, the Raptors, the Celtics a couple years ago. And, if he's not even being aggressive, it's one thing if he's at least kind of looking for a shot. But if he's not even doing that on the offensive end and they're playing off him and doubling down on Embiid or getting out on the shooters, it's almost like the Sixers are playing 4-on-5 in a half-court offense at times, and that's not going to get it done. They've had success so far with that recipe, Brody, like you said, where, Curry's hitting shots, Danny's hitting shots, and Joel's dominating. But, you can't always expect that formula to come together. You can't always expect Joel to have to go out there and score 38, 39, 40 points against some of these teams to get a W early in the season. You need to have, a more spread out attack offensively. And Ben, he's that guy. He's the all-star, and he's the one that people are going to look to for scoring. I don't think he needs to be, the second option on the team necessarily. That's not how he's built. But to me, he just, he needs to look to establish himself more on the offensive end than he has so far this season. And I think that will be, a huge factor for the team's success moving forward this season for sure.
Michael Kaskey-Blomain, CBS Sports, covers the Sixers in the NBA. So let me ask you, MKB, to get this team better, do you have to trade Ben Simmons or trade lesser pieces and just get a secondary player or a tertiary player? Really, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you get the team better without trading Ben Simmons, unless you think of a way that you can get the team better by not trading Ben Simmons.
I think you can get the team better by trading Ben and Mike, and I'm still in the camp of, barring a trade that would be a home run. Like, I understand the argument to James Harden, maybe a guy like Bradley Beal. But outside of that, I'm still firmly in the camp that you don't trade Ben Simmons yet. I think there would be a lot of unforeseen things that would happen in terms of the Sixers on the court when you trade Ben that maybe wouldn't jump out right away. He's still, obviously his defense speaks for itself and what he's able to do on that end. And still the amount of, open looks and assist opportunities that he generates for other guys on this team, it's huge. And he's a big key to their offense and what they're able to do. So I do think if you trade him away, not only are you losing a great defender, but you're also kind of losing, who's going to be the guy that sets the table for everyone, that generates these open looks, that, gets Seth the wide open looks, that can hit Danny in transition when he goes into the corner. I think Ben does so many things for this team that it's easy to obviously harp on the offense, as we've all done. But to me, I think a quicker way to improve the team would be to look at, a lesser guy. For instance, Buddy Hield obviously has been a name that's been thrown around. Zach LaVine in Chicago, a guy like that where you wouldn't necessarily have to maybe trade, one of your top two players in Ben or Joel. Maybe you could get a deal done with some of the younger pieces and future draft picks, things like that, where you get another guy that's in here capable of scoring 20, maybe even 30 on a given night, but you still keep, the playmaking and the defense that Ben provides. To me, that's probably the quickest solution of how you could improve the team, but also, still hold on to Ben and all that he brings to the floor.
I look at Daryl Morey's trade to get rid of Al Horford's contract. He brings back Danny Green and Ferguson's money. So how much of this is us needing to realize that patience is key? You don't fix those issues from last year with just one Al Horford trade. And when that money comes off the books, that gives Daryl Morey some freedom to maybe add that next player that we're kind of waiting for right now this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that one trade has done wonders for the Sixers. But like you said, Brody, you can't expect, from how disappointing and how disjointed that team looked last year, you can't necessarily expect one trade to come in and all of a sudden they turn around and they're championship contenders. I do think it's a situation where, both Morey and Doc are still getting a feel for this team. Less than 20 games in total on the season, a whole new coaching staff, obviously the new regime in the front office, and, new rotation pretty much. Two different starters, a whole different bench team. So I think it's a situation where, the Harden situation was, at the doorstep, so they had to kind of consider it. Obviously, it was going to happen. Some team was going to trade for him. They had to do their due diligence. But I really do think that they're not, out there shopping Ben or looking to necessarily shake things up in a major way right now for this team. I think they want to see, what they have in terms of the pieces that they've put in place and then potentially complement those guys, moving forward with trades and things leading up to the deadline. But they've been, pretty adamant, Doc and Daryl, that is, that they like, the pieces that they have in place. And I do believe them when they say that. Obviously, they're always going to, evaluate options when they become available, like the Harden trade. But in the short term and moving forward, I think that they have good pieces in place and they can make a couple moves to, solidify the team around Ben and Joel. And, the East is pretty open this year. Obviously, there's the Nets look good, but they're not, invincible, especially on the defensive end. The Bucks are still the Bucks. So to me, the Sixers look pretty formidable to start the season. And I don't think it's panic time, to make a move unless something, a really good offer presents itself to you.
Well, and MKB, I think one of the questions is, and I don't know if we found this out last night or if it's something we're learning, is guys like Milton and Maxey, like, you can't count on them in big moments. Like, they're nice players. They have skill. They've been nice surprises, but you need them in a Game 5 on the road somewhere against, Boston or Milwaukee, Miami. I don't know that I can count on those guys. I got to get an upgrade from those guys, at least for this year. They might help me 2-3 years down the road, but not this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Mike. And I think that kind of goes back to what I was just saying. If you could get, a guy that's a high-level player, like, I'll keep using the Buddy Hield example just because that's a name that seems to keep popping up. A guy like that can step in and give you that perimeter production where you can kind of trust them. They're a little bit more, seasoned and a little bit more experienced, where a guy like Maxey, he's obviously shown the highs, but he's also had some struggles recent times, which is to be expected, for a rookie. And the same thing with, Milton, who obviously looks a little bit more poised at this point in his career, but he's still, has far less than 100 games under his belt. He's only in his second season playing here. So, to expect these guys to consistently step up every night, that's just, it doesn't happen a lot of times. It takes, a couple seasons, some bumps and bruises along the way for guys to get comfortable. And the Sixers have, like you said, Mike, these guys are going to be valuable moving forward. But in the short term, for this season with an open title window, it's tough to depend on them. And I think they would, certainly benefit from bringing in another guy that can, do what they do, but at a slightly more consistent and reliable level.
What stands out to you the most about Tobias Harris this year?
I think just the confidence and the aggression he's playing with. I think that Doc really, when he came in, he said that he wanted to kind of just unlock Tobias, get him to stop thinking so much and being in his own head. And it really seems like that's kind of, that manifested on the floor. He's shooting the threes without hesitation, knocking them down at a, well over 40% clip. He's attacking the rim with decisiveness. And, that's the player that Tobias could be. And I think that, that's what Sixers fans were kind of hoping for, obviously, when he was signed. It's still, the contract is the contract. It's never going to be a great deal. They overpaid for him, certainly. But at least this year, he's really playing to the best of his abilities. And I think it's mainly just, the Doc, he feels a little bit, more at ease, I guess, with Doc as his coach and the way things are laid out for the team. It's a little bit more easy for, him to know his role, know what's expected of him, and just to come out and not think and be aggressive, let the threes fly and take the ball to the rim. And he's been doing, really well with that so far this season.
You've been around this team for the last couple of years. We've seen what they were. Have you altered your expectations for what you think this team can be? I mean, they were a 6 seed last year, got swept in the first round. I think coming into the year, most people thought, I don't know, did they get any better? Are they any more than a 6, 5, 4 seed? Are they better than that, in your opinion, after what you've seen so far?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And to me, them, the way they performed last year was a bit of an anomaly. Obviously, the sweep in the playoffs came without Ben Simmons, who I'm not saying that they would have won the series if Ben was playing, but certainly he could have, helped them, especially defensively, guarding some of those guys. Really weird year last year, obviously, with the pause and then the bubble, and the fact that they were so dominant at home. Like every single team that came in there last year would lose. The Clippers, the Lakers, the Bucks, whoever came to Philly lost. It was the fact that they were just so inconsistent on the road. And I think that was, a little bit of an aberration. I think the team that they were 2 years ago when they lost to the Raptors in the second round in 7 games, and the year before when they got to the second round and lost to the Celtics, I think that was a little bit closer to, the realistic team that the Sixers are with Ben and Joel and pieces around them. And this year, with the way that the East is constructed, like I said, there's not a bona fide favorite. On paper, probably you would say the Nets after the Harden trade. But to me, it's open. I think the Sixers will finish in the top 4 in the conference this year. Maybe they won't hold on to the top seed like they're in now, but I think they'll have, home court in the first round like they have in the past. And they have, depending on what other moves they make, and as long as Joel can stay healthy, I think this is a team, right now that could contend to, conference finals, maybe even get to the finals. But maybe to be a championship team, I think some more tweaks, still need to be made to the roster.
I guess, and somebody put a comment up on the screen. It says we won't be able to defend Durant, Harden, Giannis, those type of players without Ben Simmons on the team. So, in the end, do you sacrifice Ben Simmons' defense and all the intangibles he brings to get a better offensive player? I guess that's something they need to make a decision on as well.
Yeah, and to me, I really don't think you do, unless, like I said, if they did it for Harden, it's understandable. We're talking about an all-time elite level scorer. Same with Bradley Beal, a guy that's top 2, top 3 in the league in scoring year in, year out. That would really complement Joel and the rest of the guys on the team really well. But other than that, I think one of the things that the Sixers do have going for them against a team like the Nets or the Lakers or the Bucks, that they do have a lot of options on the defensive end to throw at some of these guys. And it starts with Ben, of course. Obviously, you have Matisse. Danny Green is a solid perimeter defender. You just have options that you could throw at some of these guys. And like I said, that starts with Ben, and his versatility defensively has been on display all year. He can go from guarding Kemba Walker in one series to guarding Jeremy Grant in the next series. Things like that. So I do think that's what I was saying earlier, that there's obviously issues with Ben's game still, but he does bring so much to the team on both ends of the floor that, removing him without putting in, a very, very high level scorer, I think would be detrimental to, what the Sixers do on both ends of the floor.
All right. Inside the Sixers, they lose last night. They're back tomorrow right here on 97.3 ESPN. Taking on the Lakers. LeBron and the Lakers in the house. You think Embiid plays tomorrow night?
Yeah, I would imagine so, Mike. I think a lot of these rests are, precautionary, trying to get him, time off throughout the season so he's ready to go. But I would imagine, a big game like that against the Lakers, Joel gets up for those. I think he'll be ready to go.
All right. And then, of course, they're back on Friday and Saturday. We have all those games right here on 97.3 ESPN. Actually, Friday and Sunday. They're off on Saturday. And Michael Kaskey-Blomain, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Good to see you, MKB. That's a nice beard you got going there.
It hasn't been shaved in a year.
Wow, a whole year?
Yeah, it's since March, whenever the lockdown began last year. That was my move. I was like, all right, I'm letting it flow.
It looks
good.
I
respect that.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Mama's country.
Thanks, fellas. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. Take care.
Good talking to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, Michael Kaskey-Blomain, CBS Sports. Looks good. I can't do a beard like that. I can't his is like long.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking